Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Dirty Truth, Why No One is Reading Your E-Newsletter. I am so excited that you are here with us today as the Circle team once again helps you and your team engage like never before. Now, before we just jump right in, there are a few housekeeping issues that we always go over every time we do one of these webinars, just to make sure that we are engaging you all along the way. So today, if you have a question, there is a chat box at the bottom of your screen. Please enter it as you think of it. Please jump in. We will also take your questions live at the end of today's webinar, but we really want to know what you're thinking about, what you're reacting to, what's on your mind. Are we recording this today? Absolutely. We will email you a link. We will send you a follow-up email with sort of the highlights that we talked about so that you have it there. Or if you're watching today, you might think, my team should have been here. No problem. We'll give you the link and you can watch it as many times as you like with you and your team. This isn't a typical webinar. I've sat on a ton of webinars and it'll tell you the 5 secrets for this or the 10 tips for this. And that's all I want. I just want them to really cut right to it and give me the list and not make me sit through a 2-hour webinar. Our webinars are typically go really fast, and we really just give you the answers to the test. So we're going to just jump right in, and all of a sudden it's going to be the list that we said we were going to give you. So be aware of that. If you have any technical difficulties, if your sound goes out, if your screen isn't advancing, just give us a call. That's my cell phone number. We've got an engagement specialist here, ready and waiting on deck if you have any problems. And we'd love to keep the conversation going. Please tweet us at Circle News. We'd love to have you be a part of our family and vice versa. So this is me. My name is Sarah Jackson. I have had several amazing jobs that have brought me to this point. Used to work for a chamber. Then I hopped over and worked at the NFL for the Cincinnati Bengals doing marketing and game day entertainment and sponsorships. And then I went to a public utility, a sewer district, and really jumped into the environmental education world. And then I worked for a school district as their business liaison. So I have worn several different hats, and I share this because one of you is likely to be in a marketing and communication role. You might be in a community relations role. You could be in a development role. All of those roles I have played, and one thing that sort of was the same in any role was I had the job and the responsibility of communicating with my audience. And we usually did it through a newsletter. So I know this is still a tool that has been used for a ton of years that we're still using today that still can be very effective. But I was always frustrated that we would spend so much time on our newsletters and, no one read it. And when I say no one, we generally would get a 20% open rate. The national average is hanging around 22.5. But still, to put all that work in a newsletter for 80% of your audience to still not open it really seems like a head scratcher. So we're going to talk about the why behind that today. And we're going to talk about what you can do to get people open it, but really the down and dirty of why people are not reading your stuff. This is something we have spent thousands of hours researching, and we are going to uncover and share all of our secrets today. Before we get started, I hope this webinar is one of those moments in your life where it's, wow, I was at the right place at the right time. I needed to hear this right message. And again, we're going to start by going all the way back into history with a story. So about 600 years ago, there was a catastrophic event that sort of set things in motion and triggered what we all have read in our history books known as the Renaissance or the Age of Enlightenment. So this is a picture of Johann Gutenberg. Everybody knows this is the famous inventor of the printing press. That's right. So this is the guy that invented that tool that really set things in motion, that really gave people access to information. So a quick story about how this all came about. In the 14th century, 25 to 40 million people were taken by the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. Now, what in the world does this have to do with Johann Gutenberg and the printing press? Well, what happened was, since so many people died, long story short, a lot of their riches and belongings, including their clothes, were left. And because there was this access of clothes, otherwise known as rags, all of that got turned into rag paper. And so now Johann Gutenberg had a perfect piece of paper to run through his printing press. Because if you remember before, the printing press, it took something like hundreds of sheepskins just to make one book. It was very expensive. You had to transcribe or copy books, and so only the rich and the wealthy had access to information. This set things in motion with the bubonic plague, with the rag paper, and now with Johann's invention, everyone had tons of access and to tons of wonderful information. And it was a great time of enlightenment for Europe at that time. So you sort of had now all these experts and all of these people that had access to information really able to communicate to the public. And this sort of set the method, even as we know it today. A lot of people are still following this method of really communicating out their message to the masses. So let's fast forward now to the 70s. Okay, so here's where we're going to sort of start putting all these historical events together so that you understand this is how you've ended up in your place with no one reading your newsletter. So fast forward to the 70s, and only 32% of parents had both mom and dad employed. Most moms stayed home, and mom was sort of the person that could read through the church bulletin, that could read through the community newsletter, that could read through the school newsletter, and keep up on all the family events. Well, now in 2016, 60% of families are both working. So you've got this issue where mom is busy, busier than ever, and dad, and they are struggling sort of to keep up with the information that at one time they had time to sort of go through. The other thing that you have to remember is that, and usually I don't read quotes word for word, but this one is so important from Eric Schmidt, who's the CEO for Google. He was at a tech conference recently and said this: every 2 days, okay, we create as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization until 2003. This is a big deal. So we are creating an enormous amount of information, and the speed at which we're creating it is also another change in your audience. So to really think about that, and what that means for the people that you're trying to communicate to is going to give you great insight into how you're communicating with them today. On average, not only is there this increase in information and access to information and content, but the way that people are receiving it a lot of the times is still via email, and they are getting 88 emails a day. A lot of you are looking at thinking, I wish I only got 88 emails a day. But your audience basically is completely underwater with information. So you have to think about, if you're sending out an e-newsletter, what is going to make them open ours? There's this inbox real estate with 87 other people. What is going to make them open your newsletter? So this is a big fear of people, the dreaded unsubscriber, because when someone leaves you and they unsubscribe from your list, they're dead to you. You legally cannot reach back out to them. So why are they unsubscribing? Well, First of all, they are viewing because they're getting so much now thrown at them. They're sifting through it. And if it's quickly, I don't perceive that this is relevant or meeting a need of mine, I'm out. They might also be perceiving that you're sending too many things. Again, you might not feel like you are, but it's really their perception and their reality that counts. And so they might think, I can't take another newsletter. These people are constantly sending things out. They also could be frustrated with the style that you're sending it in. If it's wonky when they pull it up on their tablet or their phone, if it's not responsive, people have now sort of a very low tolerance if things don't come up quickly, easily, and I can get to what I need when I need it. People are frustrated, again, that the content is not matching their interest. People are busy. Mom and dad are both working. They do not have time to continually sift through the paragraphs and paragraphs that are in a newsletter. So here you've got 5 kids. They're all in the same class, in the same school, same city, but each one of them are very, very, very different. So you have to remember that your audience is very diverse in terms of their life stages and their interest. And their interests are constantly changing. So this is another challenge for us as communicators. If it's all about knowing your audience and the interest of my audience is constantly changing, how do I get to them? This is another issue where you are communicating up north of the baby boomers all the way down to the millennials. And each one of those demographics prefers communication differently. This is a challenge, and this is why if you've got a one-size-fits-all type of communication, why some of them might not be opening it and some of them are. Or maybe you pulled the dreaded switch on mailing out the printed newsletter, and now you've got the baby boomers all hot and heated because they are used to getting that printed newsletter in the mail. That audience is dwindling, but still causes problems for organizations because you've got half the people wanting to communicate one way, half want it mobile, and with limited resources and staff, this becomes really, really challenging. Millennials, we have done a ton of work studying millennials, lots of pilots, lots of our organizations trying to get to the millennials. You know, millennials, they don't know a world without Pandora, without Netflix. Netflix knows them. Netflix knows what movies I like. Pandora knows what music I like. So there's an expectation in the millennials' mind that, hey, if you don't know me, I'm out. Because they're used to all of this technology being personalized for them. So if you haven't kept up with the times, you've got those competitors on your tail. So some of us are still using a newsletter. Here's one that I received, from Party City. This is another one, Wellness Outlook. And the big aha moment when we're talking about sort of the history of communication and where we are, this is a newsletter from 1864. I mean, with a little tweak maybe in pictures, they virtually look the same. This technology and the way that we are communicating has not evolved for over 150 years. So if this isn't a cold glass of water to the face, I don't know, I know it was for us. This is a big eye-opener that we are still communicating the way that we did 150 years ago, despite the fact that our audience has dramatically changed. And that is the dirty truth about it. So again, we are back in the Gutenberg days, right? We've got an expert. We are the organization. It is our agenda that we're trying to communicate. It's our events that we think our audience wants to come to. It's our message. And sometimes we might walk around the hallways of our organization and say, does anybody else got anything in the newsletter? So this is very self-serving for the organization. It's very one-sided. It's one size sort of fits all for the entire audience without us even really considering the interest, the life stages, and of our audience. So right now, the tools that we've had up until this time have really supported this type of method, this one-to-many communication. And this is why you get this. You know, you might be out in the community and you'll say to your friend, hey, why weren't you at our event last night? Or did you see this in our newsletter? And how many times and how frustrating it is when your friend or a board member says, I just didn't know. I just didn't know you guys were doing that. And you go back to the communication department, everybody beats their head against the wall. Like, how do you mean you didn't know about it? We put it in the newsletter. It's on our website. It's on Facebook. It's on Twitter. What do you mean I just didn't know? So this is an issue where that message is not cutting through the noise because of the tools that we are using from 150 years ago. So today we're going to talk about what if you could save time and even have your newsletter automatically designed, right? What if you didn't have to spend time laying it out and doing that? What if every email you sent you knew was going to be meaningful to the recipient? What if we could do that? What if you could triple your open rates? As we're talking about these what if statements, sometimes I even wonder if, Johann himself sat and thought, what if we could just mass produce these books and not have to transcribe them? He saw this issue just like we're seeing on our end. And what if every subject line, could be personalized so that that person knew it was for them. There was something that was going to be in that newsletter that was meaningful to them. So again, you can go at this alone. This is the part of the webinar where we're just going to give you the answers to the test. We're going to talk about our tool and our platform that we've built that sort of helps automate this. But before we get into that, no matter what tool that you use, what team that you have, we're going to give you a list of things that you should be doing to take that dirty truth of it's not your fault, but you haven't changed, but your audience has. So that's the fact of the matter. That is the truth. And so these are some things that you can do to adapt to this ever changing, stream of communication to your audience. So you need to start using data. You've really got to customize their experience with you and your organization through data. And how do we do that? The first thing is you got to stop guessing, right? We think these are the 5 top stories we should put in our newsletter. We think this is an event that everybody wants to come to because we've been planning it the last 100 years and we've always done it that way. So you can't guess anymore. You really need to survey your audience interest and find out what they're interested in, what their needs are, what life stages they are in. You really need to start to evolve into a true storyteller. Share stories, and through stories, you will trigger that emotional bond. Stories connect the head and the heart. And when you do this in a meaningful way, this really starts to engage your audience on that level. You need to create value through content that is going to resonate with them. So you need to look at it from your audience perspective. What benefit does this piece of content provide to my audience? What true value are we providing? Your events really need to be relevant to your audience and to the times. Just because you've always planned a golf outing doesn't mean that it still works, right? If you don't have that many golfers in your audience anymore, you might want to plan some event that is more resonating perhaps to a younger audience, right? And again, give them what they need, not what you need. So this is in terms of maybe you've got donors in your audience. Maybe you've got business partners or sponsors, right? How can you use your communication channel as a way to benefit them, as a way to position them as an expert, to promote their tips, their blogs, to really give them access to your audience? So again, you can go at this alone. This is sort of the down and dirty of these are some things that right out of the gate that you can start doing to really transform and evolve your newsletter into from a one size fits all, I'm pushing out a message to the masses, to flipping that model and really listening to your audience and providing information that is going to resonate with them. Now, if you're thinking, lady, you are absolutely crazy. How in the world with our staff are we going to even be able to do any of that? We can't test subject lines, so I don't know how to survey our audience. Wow, this seems like a ton of work. And when I had all of those jobs and sat in the same seat you did, I thought the same thing. And this is why our team at Circle has built a platform, and our solution is to automate all of this for you, to really automate the personalization process. So we have a tool that's extremely affordable that you can use, and we're going to show you really quickly how it works. If you want to stay on the call and stay with us, we can show you how this happens automatically for you, and then we'd be more than happy to do a test with you to see if this would be a product that might be a fit for your organization and for your organization to make this fundamental switch from communication to engagement. So here's how it works. Again, the old way, the old method is one message, sort of trying to fit at that all. We are the expert. We're pushing information out, right? Everybody's now got access to the information. What we do at Circle is we have your information, but it's information that now your audience wants. We try to get the right information to the right person at the right time. Because the fact of the matter is you're producing amazing content, but because of the way the world has evolved, which we talked about, they're not getting that message. It's not getting through. So here's how we help you cut through the noise. We take all of the amazing content that you're producing. If it's on social channels, Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, we can use your current content management system. If you don't have one and you want to use ours, you can enter it directly into Circle. The point is, we make your life easy. You don't have to do double work. We can just grab content wherever you're posting it. And then we have a smart tagging system. We take each individual post, story, and we decipher, what is this about? And we don't stop there. This is where the magic really happens. We then cross-reference that with the interest of your audience. So we've got your content, we've got it tagged, and it sits in our content cloud. That becomes one of 6 pieces of information that fuel this personalization engine, all for you, all automatically on the back end, saving you a ton of time and a ton of work. So we've got your amazing content, we've got it tagged. Then when you import your list into your Circle, we're going to explicitly ask your audience, what do you care about? These are topics that you can pick that align with your company, that right out of the gate, we can start getting to know your audience and what their likes and interests are. Then we ask them their schedule. So you can stop Googling when's the best time to send out an e-newsletter. It changes all the time anyway. I think last month it was Tuesdays at 10. Now they're saying it's Thursdays at 11. You can stop that craziness, right? Just ask your audience, when do you want to receive it? Then we ask them their format, right? If baby boomers want that beautifully, traditionally laid out newsletter, great. If I'm a millennial and I want the headlines, they can pick. The point is they can personalize it to how they want to receive it and how it appears into their inbox. Then we have machine learning, behavioral analytics, much like Netflix and Pandora does on the back end. So your audience might not have said, hey, I'm really into entrepreneurship or technology, but everything they're reading from your organization is telling us that. So we implicitly are constantly listening to your audience and understanding what it is that they're engaging and interacting with, and then ordering their content from you in that order. And then they certainly can follow certain people. This works really well with universities that are on, that alumni want to follow their professors, or it might be K through 12 schools that are on, that the parents want to follow a certain teacher, or any sort of organization where I have an alignment to a certain staff member. You can give each one of those people a voice if you choose to. So what happens is it sort of looks like this. Here's the flow. We're just using a local chamber of commerce here as an example that's located here in our area in Cincinnati, Ohio. But here are their topics that they've chosen for their membership. You can pick which ones that you like. And then you pick your schedule. Again, you set the default, but if they want to override it, they certainly can. And then they pick. Do I want just the headlines, maybe headlines and maybe a little bit of detail about what the story's about, how long it's going to take me to read it? Or do I want that traditionally laid out newsletter? And in less than 60 seconds, they did it. It's that easy. And now they can share with their social network all of this amazing content that they enjoy, which is, again, another way to help grow your list and really capitalize on all the social networks of each individual audience member. So this is what they see now. Now they've got each subject line personalized. This is my personal news from Anderson. It's got stories in this that are aligned to my interest. I'm interested in business, technology, and in here they say there's 3 other stories. So now it looks like this. And now we're constantly prompting your audience. With the topics that they're not following, we're asking them, hey, are you interested in community engagement? Are you interested in business networking? Constantly prompting them and asking them what they like. Here's another example from the Goshen Chamber of Commerce. So again, our system is now listening to your audience and responding all automatically on your behalf. So we've really flipped the model where we are delivering the content that your audience wants. So here's another example. We do a ton of work with universities who are trying to engage their students and their alumni. Here's 3 different alums. You see the first one is interested in innovation history and he wants to follow this Professor Gary. The second woman has similar interest, but if you really lean into your screen and you can see that her first story is first, but it's the second story in the first guide. Do you see that? And it's first for her because that story matches more of her interest. Here is another dirty truth. Your audience does not trust you anymore. They don't. If only 20% or so of people are opening your newsletter, you have lost that trust. So what Circle helps you do is gain that trust back with your audience. We help to set you up for success to get each individual audience member listening to you again. So we are ordering up the stories in order of what is most engaging to that person so they really lean in and read and continue to read and continue to engage. Now the third student or alum has 3 completely different interests, and that's okay. His newsletter is going to look completely different than everyone else's. But the point is, this is where you really start to get above those 50%, 60% open rates, because everything now that I'm getting from you, I know it's going to be something that is personally meaningful to me. And so now when you do have something that everybody's got to see, we've hired a new president or we've got our annual dinner, you can still have some control where you can push content into their feeds. But the point is, you've got them trusting you and listening to you once again. Control is a big deal, and I know if you have that communication hat on or that marketing, branding, let's keep maintain our messaging hat on, I'm the same way. So there's a lot of control features built in here for you. It is all your branding. It all comes from you. It's all delivered from your email. You have all the control still within your power. And it's all responsive, which is nice. It looks good on tablets, mobile devices, whatever your audience is choosing to use. So this is where the magic really starts to happen. This is where Circle really starts to become the printing press of the 21st century. So right now you only have limited information. You only have maybe an email address, first and last name. You don't know that much about your audience. Circle fills the rest of that picture in of what their audience interests are right now in real time. And if you want, we can even get really sassy and integrate all of those interests into your CRM. So we can talk more about that offline if you're interested in that. And now what happens is that old email list is evolved and transformed into this searchable asset database. So if you are planning that golf outing and you're short on event registrations, you can now go in and search who is everyone in our audience that likes golf. or maybe you need a speaker on female leadership, who is everybody that has that interest. You can now search anything among your audience and really tap into their passion and their interest and their talents in a way that is meaningful to them, thus sustaining engagement in the relationship with them, which is what you wanted in the first place. Our insights really are empowering for you. So we're going to give everything an engagement score. Every piece of content is going to get an engagement score. So now you're going to really know what is resonating with your audience. We're going to tell you the top content interest of your audience. We're going to tell you, hey, you posted a story on sustainability. Everybody loved it, and you haven't talked about it in 30 days. We're going to just give you all the answers to the test. We're also going to give an engagement score to every single person in your audience. So you're going to know your champions. And more importantly, you're going to know who's the least engaged and what their interests are so that you can reach back out to them in a meaningful way. This is also really helpful for internal communication. If you're trying to engage your employees, it really becomes a predictor of, is somebody going to leave? It's very expensive to lose people, to lose donors, to lose employees. So now you can really be watching it through all of these amazing audience insights. Again, we want to show you a case study here from Xavier University. They were really concerned with engaging their millennials. You know, the average alum graduates with $35,000 worth of college debt. So if I'm in development, what am I going to say to these kids? I'm sure not going to ask them for an alumni donation right out of the gate, but I don't want to lose them. What do I say? So this was Xavier's issue, and they really were scratching their heads of how do we keep our millennials engaged? They were using Constant Contact. They were at a 19% open rate. Again, the national average is hovering around 22%, and now they're above a 50%. And we really wanted to see their click-through. Are they really engaging with the information? So that was at a 3.9, and now they're at a 12. And my favorite stat here is we've nearly eliminated their unsubscribe rate. We have over 400 circles on Circle. We've sent out over 3.9 million newsletters, and you can look at our average rate, open rate, compared to the national average is hovering around 45%. Our click-through rate just blows everybody out of the water. Again, this is the point in the webinar where I always tell people, even if you don't use Circle or not, it really demonstrates that this art of personalization works with your audience, and you need to be heading in that direction no matter what tool you choose to use. Another thing I want to throw in there is, now that you've got that engaged audience, you have something that your business partners and that your donors want. And now you can bridge that gap between their sponsorship and marketing dollars. You can allow them, if you want, again, this is completely optional, to digitally sponsor now your newsletter. And all of that revenue now comes back to you. Again, making you look like a rock star, where now the communication department is, which was an expense, this newsletter platform now becomes a real revenue generator, while at the same time creating ROI for your business partners. How easy is it? Again, we've got some comparison about how people ask us a lot, how do you compare with Constant Contact and MailChimp? We're different from them in terms of our data and how we operate and how this automated personalization piece works, but we make it very easy to transition from one to the other. Again, we're going to save you time. You never have to design another newsletter again. A/B testing is gone. Trying to figure out what subject line works is gone. Trying to sift through hours of data, all of that is gone, making it a lot less work for you and your team. So now you can divert your attention to really high strategic thinking and knowing, yes, we now know what content they want. We now know what kind of events we should be planning. I want to share this with you. This was from Evan Burns. The number one trend in media for 2016 It is personalizing the content for your audience. So that is the absolute dirty truth of where we have evolved, why we are sitting in the seat that we're sitting in, and what you need to do to get people now to believe you, to trust you again, to start listening to you, and that will result in them being excited and happy to receive your newsletter in their inbox. Again, if you're interested in learning more, we at Circle know that a lot of people have a lot of fears about software and maybe stepping into a new technology. But we love for you to test this new printing press of the 21st century. We love when people say, all right, can we test it? Can we test it among, a few of our audience members? Absolutely. And so if you're interested in doing that, please email me at sarah@circle, CERKL.com. And now we are going to be opening it up for questions. The way our questions work is that I know it's sort of like in school when you are afraid to raise your hand and answer, I'm going to be afraid I'm going to ask the dumb question. There are no dumb questions, but we certainly keep all of the questions private. We will read them out loud for the benefit of the entire audience, but your name, will not appear in the chat box as you type in your questions. So, do we have any questions today?